Hello and welcome to Stephen University. We are back. Obviously we had 2 episodes last week, but we are back doing actual episodes of the show. Stephen Universe Future, episode 1. It's just so exciting. Like when the intro started, Chris, did you basically just wet yourself? Because I did.
I didn't literally wet myself, no. And I feel sorry for Nadia having to clean that up at 1 a.m.
Whoa! What are you like? Well, that is horrendously sexist. I did not make Nadia clean it up at all. Clean up after myself, my friend.
It wasn't a sexist statement. It was more a reflection on you.
You trying to say I'm lazy?
I just think, I don't know. I don't know. It's early. It's you've taken the joke further than I thought you would.
Yeah, that's fair. Because by all rights, further than anyone should have is the reason you assumed that. Carry on.
Wait, what? Say that again.
I was just saying, the reason you assumed I wouldn't have taken it that far is because that is further than a reasonable person would have taken it.
Oh yes, yeah, I'm with you. I tell you what, I was actually more excited. So for context, I thought it'd be quite fun if I haven't watched all the episodes. A little harking back to the original days. So I've watched the first 2, because they're the 2 that we're recording together. And I tell you what, I got more excited than not from the titles, but from going, God, this feels a bit like short and random, and then being like, oh, these are episodes of the show. Like that's what it used to be. Because I was trying to think the last time we had, and more so with episode 2 guidance, and we will talk 1 episode at a time. But more so with that episode, it really felt like an 11-minute classic Steven Universe episode, and that's when I got most excited, because I can't remember the last time we had that. So that was really exciting.
When was the last time we had that?
Yeah, like a non-mythology, just an adventure tale. Who knows?
Could it have been maybe The Question?
Remind me what happened in The Question.
Wasn't The Question the Ruby Rider episode right before the wedding?
Yeah, those 4 or 5 episodes were dealing with the fallout, and were dealing with Ruby and Sapphire's relationship. It was all one story.
Yeah, they did feel very episodic though, because there's the one where they're like looking for Ruby, and it's an Amethyst Stevens story, and there's the one where they find Ruby, and then it's the Ruby Rider thing. Like they're kind of like they are kind of separate adventures, but they're all there's an overarching
episodic, but part of an arc. Yeah, I'm talking single, especially guidance.
In that case,
just a single.
In that case, then it's either Letters to Lars or Pool Hopping.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. So that got me very excited. The idea of a new world.
Worth noting that Letters to Lars and Pool Hopping aired in April 2018, Chris. So a year and a half ago.
Yeah. That's nuts.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. Like, getting back to that old tone of just like, let's just have a fun adventure. 10 minutes, in and out. It's literally that Rick and Morty meme. Morty, would you 1 episode, Morty, quick adventure, in and out with 10 minutes. It's that bit. It's, it's like, jump in a portal, come out 5 minutes later, like, oh, that was crazy. That's how these felt. But at the same time, clearly establishing not just our new world order, as it were, but some little teases at some stuff to come.
Yes, well, especially from episode 1. So let's talk about episode 1, Dan.
Mm-hmm.
How much was part of my enjoyment based on the fact that I said I thought we'd see Jasper this season, and you weren't too sure, and we saw her in episode 1? Yeah, quite a bit. Yeah, that was quite a bit of it. Yeah.
That is new levels of smug hitherto uncharted. My smugometer literally just exploded next to me.
Which is weird, because yours is higher than most.
Yeah, I've got a special advanced one I bought that can handle my levels of smug, but you just broke it.
That's very
I
pleased.
could have
No,
been. I mean, I could have been very smug about the, predicting the opening scene, the use of that character exactly because I recall Chris having that conversation with you, and is that really the way they're going to introduce us to Little Homeworld through her? And I'm like, yeah, it is, and then they did.
I've got a defense of that, but I don't remember you saying Diamond Bubble Bath. Because let me tell you, if you did, I would allow you to be very smug.
Yeah, I mean the Diamond Bubble Bath thing surprised me because we got, so that clip obviously aired earlier in the week, but it started from her forming. And and by the way, for those who don't know, because it wasn't actually said in the episode, but they confirmed on Twitter this particular fusion so the episode's kind of in two halves really. The first sort of half is like a sort of 4 minute like catch you up to what's going on. The main gem that's part of that is cherry quartz. They don't say her name in the episode, but the whole cherry quartz section of this, they released a clip of it, but it starts with her forming and she was in the bath. And my theory on that at the time when that clip got released on Twitter was that Stephen had linked his shower up to Rose's fountain. I definitely didn't see. Nice. I definitely didn't see Diamond Bubble Bath as being an option.
No,
and especially that he's gone to the trouble of making such very elaborate bottles to keep them in that are like the shapes of the diamonds.
It's almost sort of the wink to the camera as well.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the episode structure because I loved it, and let's not do the thing. We should probably praise it first. But let's talk about the structure because I thought that was from a analytical point of view the most interesting part.
Certainly the most surprising because when you see so much of a character in a trailer, you assume that character's the focus of the episode, and to have them literally walk away from her 3 or 4 minutes in and do a different story, you can see where I was struggling to see how Jasper might fit into the equation.
Oh yeah. I was being like mock smug, absolutely, you know that. But
well, my smug monitor doesn't pick up on mock smug, just real smug, and it definitely exploded.
No, it's because you're never mock smug. It's always a genuine undertone with you.
But glass houses, mate. Glass houses.
Hey, I'm sure you, because now what I've done is I've created a scenario where for the next 10 episodes, if you're right about the littlest thing, you'll point it out and be really smug about it. So,
no, you've created a scenario where I definitely don't want to do that because you sounded like a complete bellend.
Hey, doesn't change the facts.
Well done for driving that home. Carry on.
Thank you. Well, you brought it up again. I think you're just annoyed at me being right. But let's talk about that because I think let's talk about that. I think your prediction on her was absolutely valid, and I kind of the reason I sort of struggle with it a little bit structurally is because it kind of feels like it was done just for recap. And you could have done an entire episode on her and then done the Jasper thing later.
Yes.
Or you could have just done the Jasper thing and made that an entire episode and made it a bit more than a fight scene. So it sort of... I enjoyed every element of it, but I was kind of like, well, I feel like this would be better as 2 episodes. And certainly if it was 2 episodes, it would feel like there was more of a purpose to the first bit, as opposed to exactly what you've just said, feeling like an excuse to recap for 4 minutes instead of making a story out of it.
I don't know about recapping because it's more about...
Well, sorry, setting the scene for now. And
I think sort of getting us the status quo is pretty important, especially because it only took a couple of minutes. I think if it had been a whole episode establishing the status quo, that might have been maybe too much. I could be wrong. Obviously, we'd have to see that episode to really know if whether that works or not. It's pure speculation otherwise. But I actually kind of think this was paced pretty well because, like, we got the establish the world. And it was very much the impetus for Stephen's thinking that led him to the Jasper moment. Do you know what I mean? So it kind of all linked together in a pretty neat way for me. I thought it was like, showing that Steven's life is as we predicted. He's set up Little Homeworld. He's occasionally got new gems to bring back. He introduces him to that world, and otherwise his purpose. And we'll come back to the whole Steven's purpose thing in episode 2, because there's a bit of a storyline relating to that in that episode. But this idea that's what he's up to these days. And then we got a quick excuse, although a little bit shoehorned actually, because it doesn't make any sense that Steven would be. I noticed they used it mostly to catch us up on the human characters, which I thought was really interesting. Did you notice that? So it was like, this is what Lars is up to, this is what Sadie's up to, this is what Connie is up to. And he doesn't actually say anything about what Pearl and Garnet are doing, other than when you get to Pearl, Garnet, and Amethyst, until you get to Little Homeworld, you see it. And I guess it's because, for whatever reason, they couldn't fit those characters in. So it's really actually kind of weirdly awkward that he gets in the car with this gem who doesn't know who Sadie, Lars, or Connie are. And then he starts telling her what they're up to, and she's like, and they play it as a joke, but it's that old thing of just because you've pointed out the flaw doesn't make it better.
Yeah, we talked about that a lot over the course of, I think, this podcast and our other one. It is, and I think the reason we talk about it so much and highlight it is because it's something we've done.
Yes,
and every time we see someone else do it, there's a little bit of like, oh god.
yeah. Once you've made that mistake and spotted it, it's quite painful to see. But in terms of the structure, I can see why somebody would be like, can we get to whatever this week's story is, or can we just explore this properly? But I actually thought it was a reasonable balance.
That's fair.
I think for not for necessarily a new viewer, but for maybe a lapsed viewer jumping in here, that's helpful. But not only that, but I just think if you missed the movie, at all, then. It just re-established Little Homeworld. And the funny thing is, it's actually less of a percentage of the episode than you think. He sat on that bench with Amethyst talking about Jasper by 3 minutes and 30 seconds into the episode. Sorry, 3 minutes and 40 seconds. So of an 11-minute episode, that is a surprisingly short amount of it.
Just over a quarter.
I understand it structurally as maybe a criticism, but I thought it actually worked quite well. It kind of said to me
not a massive criticism, just a kind of like, oh, that's a surprising way of doing it, and maybe I'd have preferred to exploring each one properly.
100%, and I think that's the reason maybe my brain went there, because and that's why I brought up the Jasper thing, was not to bring it back up again to make more jokes about the whole smugometer or whatever. I brought it back up because I think it's actually interesting that my brain assumed they would be 2 separate episodes, because I think that is normally the way you would do it. But I get the feeling they didn't want to waste an episode doing that. I get the feeling they were like, we got to get straight to it because we've got X number of things we need to close up because we didn't get to in the main show, and we got X number of episodes to do it. Spending a whole episode reestablishing the world might be wasteful. So
but guidance doesn't do anything for the mythology. So I don't think they feel like every episode needs to get to something, wrapping stuff up.
I would disagree. I mean, maybe mythology, no, but the wider arc of Steven, for sure. We'll talk about it when we get there. But I do think it adds something to the overall picture, guidance. But we'll come back to that, I guess. But no, I guess I know that'll be the next episode. Come back tomorrow for that, I guess.
Happy Bomb.
Yeah, Happy Bomb. We're gonna do it. Yeah, we're doing this we'll do an episode every day this week. Well, I say every day this week. One day there won't be one of these because there's a I think the 10th, which might be the Tuesday. So actually, it might not be tomorrow. It might be 2 days till we get to guidance. Because I think we've got the Jumanji Rewind review going up, which is lined up with the release of the new movie, and that felt like too perfect to miss up as an opportunity. I'm sure people will be Googling Jumanji. I'm just desperate for views, Chris. We just need to get Rewind reviews sorted. That's all that matters. Right. So anyway, back to I think what did you think about the stuff we learned about all the characters? Like forgetting the structure for a minute, how happy were you with the sort of the explanation of where everyone's up to?
Yeah, very happy. Yeah, I thought it all made sense. I thought it gives us some good routes to explore. Um, I think it'll be interesting how much space we have for, Sadie and Lars. I really want to get some plots with them, but equally they kind of they've not given themselves necessarily the reason to. We know where they both are, and they're both in situations that could take them away from the action, if quite comfortably, if need be. I'd prefer to see them. So, yeah, I thought everyone's conclusions and what they were teaching / what they were doing were pretty logical.
Yeah.
I thought it was bizarre when they cut to Sadie. It almost looked like something about the shot or the styling of it made it look like she was like in Paris or something. It was like studying abroad. And then it was like, she's revising hard already. I was like, oh, okay, she's not travelled somewhere.
We might as well talk about that shot now. That shot is apparently a reference to a thing. So the reason that shot looks so weirdly different to the design and style of the rest of the show is because it is designed to match this thing. It's called Lo-Fi Hip Hop Mix Girl. And basically...
You know what? I thought it was that.
Mate, I definitely didn't. I very much had to be told about this. So basically...
I don't know what those words mean.
Yeah, mate, neither did I. I promise you. I had to research this morning just to try and get my head around what it was. Basically, it seems that at some point somebody put up a YouTube video, like it was a couple hours long, and it was like a mix of like hip hop, like sort of like chilled out hip hop beats to study to. No lyrics,
right.
Nothing distracting. And they set it
because I got real enjoyment from that. Because obviously you're 31 years old.
Yeah, 31-year-old white dude saying it's the lo-fi hip hop beats. Yes.
Could you say no? You said chilled out hip hop beats. If you could just say that again, that would really
chilled out hip hop beats. I'm down with the kids.
Cool, Alan Partridge. Carry on.
Anyway, the point is, somebody put this up and they set it to it's like a short looped video of a girl studying. An anime style drawing of a girl studying in a room with lots of little details.
Oh, cool.
With a cat on the windowsill. And like it just moves slightly. It doesn't move a lot. But like it's just set to that. And then basically people have been looping that footage and doing lots of compilations like this. So it's the hip hop beats girl. That's like her lo-fi hip hop beats is like the in brackets what you Google to find videos with her with music set to her. And it's to study to. You put it on in the background and you're good. That's the idea. So for some reason
awesome.
they seem to have styled the Connie shot after that. I don't know why, but they have.
Because she's studying. That's a nice nod.
Yeah, I mean, look, yeah, it's a bit out of their normal zone of referencing, but I love it. Like it's a really neat thing that they've like found some.
Well, yeah, but do you think? Sounds so odd. Like I don't want to make it like Saved by the Bell, the college years, like moving time slot. But do you think it's kind of it's an older reference? Do you think that's sort of saying,
well, actually,
the audience has grown, we've grown.
I think there's a little bit of that. And in response to our question last week, somebody, I think Cram, pointed out that the show is rated.
Oh, cool.
The show is rated for 12 and up.
Oh, right.
The original show.
Oh. Wow.
So it's a little older than we thought. Whereas OKKO is rated as like, much younger, like 6 and up or something.
Yeah, that is older than we thought.
Yeah. So, but it's also worth noting that the reason they're doing this is because they've got the 8 o'clock time slot back. They don't always have it because normally Cartoon Network ends at 8 to become to the thing. Adult Swim. But for some reason in the winter, the deep winter, like towards Christmas, when kids are off and maybe staying up later, they keep it on for an hour extra. They leave Cartoon Network up until 9. So I guess that's probably why the last couple of winters we've gotten Steven Universe content. Because if you think about it, we had episodes across last Christmas too. And it was probably for the same reason. Yeah. It was probably airing at 8 o'clock then. I don't know that, but probably.
It's weird because I nearly made a joke in comparison and nearly started to refer to this as Steven Universe the college years last week, and now I just really want to do that.
Yeah, I mean, you're not too far off it. I think they have. I do think they're very intentionally acknowledging their audience is aged. I don't think that's a coincidence.
I agree.
I don't think you're off the mark there at all. I think that's bang on. It's still accessible for younger audiences, but it's definitely showing a certain amount of maturity.
And I love that. I love that reference point. I think that's awesome. Whilst I didn't even know lo-fi hip hop was a thing until this morning. But I think that's an awesome reference.
Yeah, it's great, and it genuinely does sound like the kind of music I could write to. Like as I was listening to it to check it out, I was like, actually, I could easily have this on as background music. It's kind of perfect.
Yeah,
it's like unintrusive music. It's interesting.
Yeah, I find the problem with me is I find I can only do like remedial tasks to music, like number crunching or whatever. Like when I've got to write something in a personal or professional context. If I have music that I know too well, I get easily distracted by singing or thinking or whatever. So some lo-fi hip hop might be where I turn.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the answer that I was using to that was the music of a guy called Isaac Shepard, who's a pianist who does these incredible, like very very evocative musical pieces, but they're pure piano and they're like there's no lyrics, so I can't, like, they're there and they're evoking all sorts of sort of highs and lows of like they go through a lot of emotional spectrum, but like they're not intrusive in the I'm tapping along to it or I'm singing along to it. So that's what I've previously been doing. But I'm definitely going to, next time I sit down to write, I'm probably going to try out this thing. I genuinely am. I thought it seemed fun. So that's why that shot looks a bit more overly complex,
that makes sense,
than the others. But there are some nice details in that shot. For example, one of the toys on her desk is a dog copter. She has a picture of Lion. She has a picture of Stephen on the wall. She has a hibiscus flower in the pot in her thingy, which is the flower of rose quartz. And most adorably, on her little pot full of pencils and scissors and her ruler, over that she has got slung the glow stick bracelet that Stephen gave her at this point about 5 years ago.
Oh wow,
4 or 5 years.
So
ago.
how did you feel about where everyone was?
I was okay with it. I actually shared a pang of something you've talked about in an old episode. In the build up to the movie, you talked about how you'd be disappointed to see Lars not off in space kicking arse still.
Yeah.
And I at the time was like, I could. I remember even having that discussion. I think it was on the trailer for the movie where we saw, the trailer that showed us the shot of Lars putting the ube roll down in front of everyone from the Happily Ever After song. We didn't know that was where it was from at the time, obviously. I liked he's a space pirate, she's a rock god. I liked the contrast between Lars's life and Sadie's life. They both found such big, important lives, from their small, humble beginnings as clerks in a donut shop. So to have him, I know he owns the business now. And by the way, pastries, yes, please. I'm on board with a space-themed pastry shop in general. But it does feel like he maybe is like come round to being not far from where he was. Is the idea that maybe he always wanted and loved that more than he pretended? I don't know.
Well, I think it's because they're really ramming home the universe is safe or feels safe or everyone thinks it's safe and there's freedom and it's great and it's da-da-da. So if you then had Stephen going, Lars is off on space adventures, you'd potentially be going, well, what kind of space adventures? And is the universe not as safe as it seems? And
you would,
if they're not forced to have space adventures, I get it.
I agree. In terms of this episode, it was useful for that, but we know there is still loads of shit going on in space that's problematic. That's the problem, is we know there are episodes later in this series that will deal with that. There's 2 rogue Lapises out there, like, destroying worlds. The video game Unleash the Light shows some of the aftermath of Steven's choice to free everyone. Freeing everyone and making everything an independent planet has caused probably as much chaos as you can imagine. Like, there are planets that are deciding to just stay gemmy and like retain elements of gem society and are going out and conquering other planets that Steven has freed. Like, there's clearly other chaos going on in the universe. Just because he's freed all those planets doesn't mean they're now behaving correctly. Do you know what I mean? If we freed all the prisoners in our prison systems, Chris, they wouldn't. Do you know what I mean? They wouldn't immediately become perfect citizens. It's some of them will be grateful for would be reformed and grateful for their new lease on life, but some would probably go back to their old ways. Like there's a reality to it, and it's not like the show's going to ignore that, because we know there are episodes further down the line that there's still some stuff going on in space that needs Steven's attention. It's not all perfect. So you're right, it would slightly undercut maybe this episode, but it also depends what kind of adventures they're on. Maybe you just show him like helping a planet restore water, after to help them bring back the original organic life. Or do you know what I mean? The space adventures don't need to be him fighting other stuff, but just going out helping with transporting supplies or whatever. Do you know what I mean? To me, that would have been better, but it takes more to show that. They had one shot. What's Lars's shot? Well, he's in front of a shop. Okay, I get it. I know what's going on.
Yeah.
Whereas how else do you explain, if you do put him back on Space Adventures, how do you demonstrate that in a quick, montage shot?
It'll be interesting, because they could do an episode where he's at Space Trees and happy but bored and maybe a bit resentful of Sadie, and he finds he does something heroic, and then his true self comes out again.
Yeah, but that would feel a bit like sort of 1 step forward, 2 steps back, 3 steps forward.
I mean, heaven knows they've done that with Lapis in the past.
Yeah, that's true. So yeah, I guess it's not out of the realms of possibility, and at least that would give me. I like the idea that. Then again, they did confidently. The thing is, they established 2 very serious and very different threads for Lars. They did really establish his love for baking and his passion for that.
Yeah, you could argue that his space adventures brought out in him the confidence to show the world his baking, which we had a whole episode about how he didn't have that confidence, but it was an area of his personality that he loved. And he travelled across space and went through all sorts of shit, and he died. The man died. If he wants to make a pastry, let him, Dan. Jesus.
Yeah, that's fair. Who am I to deny him his pastries when he died?
But you could, if you view it from that spectrum, then it's not as bad.
Fair.
But I do agree with you that you're right. I did say that, and I do think I will miss the space pirate if we never see that again. And that's why I hope these 10 episodes, and if it is just these 10, hopefully it's not, as we've discussed. Hopefully it's 20, 24. But I hope that the episodes have the time to explore this sort of thing as well.
Yeah, I would agree.
So what did you think of Stephen v. Jasper?
Well, before we get to Stephen and Jasper, just a couple notes on what the other guys are doing. So obviously, they're all teaching and helping at Little Homeworld. Pearl is teaching technology. Garnet seems to be teaching about being a bit more spiritually sort of together. She's doing yoga, it looks like, or a form of it. And Amethyst is teaching them how to be free, because she, of course, is she's the only of the gems that was never under the thumb of Homeworld.
Yeah.
Where both that's so clever to me. I love that so much, because she was born on Earth. She's been her entire life. She's been as free as anyone could wish to be, and she never experienced being under the thumb of that society. So she's the perfect person to get gems on board with that. So yeah, I was just curious to get one of your feelings on that, and two, Peridot teaching people how to grow plants as well was adorable. I thought it was such a quick shot.
I think that was awesome. I think the Amethyst, as you say, was incredibly clever. I think all of them make sense. Maybe
Pearl and technology was a bit of a stretch, maybe.
No, I was going to say Garnet and spirituality, actually. But no, she's an incredibly spiritual person. No, I loved them all, to be honest with you. Pearl and technology, maybe, but then I loved the phone call, and you're like, oh, I wonder if it's a new girlfriend of Pearl's, and it's not.
No, it's
but she's always been
Hollow Pearl.
she's always been quite good with technology. I think that does make sense.
Yeah, it's not something they've ever put a lot of
She's
focus on though. So it did seem we spent a lot of time learning about Peridot and her, love of because she's obviously was a trained kindergartner. The idea of her loving to grow plants and stuff. There were multiple episodes that focused on that idea. So yeah, it's kind of the Pearl one feels the least set up. I'm fine with it. It's not wrong as such. It's just when the others are so perfect, they're so perfect. Sorry, I've been making that joke constantly in my Steven Universe Unleash the Light videos because the pearls move. If you time it right, it says perfect, and every time it happens, I say perfect, and I'm sad and lonely.
They really missed a trick by not doing that.
They did miss it. You're right. They missed a trick by not making it say perfect. Anyway, so yeah, no, I'm on board with it. It's not a bad idea. It's just it's a shame that it's not quite as well established as the others. It's not a major criticism. It's just an observation.
But do you think the Garnet, because even I suppose it was Garnet in Mindful Exposure, wasn't it?
Mindful Education, yeah.
Yeah.
So two very quick things then before we get into Jasper. Number one, how did you feel about them just leaving Cherry Quartz just like the way they did? Like, my lesson 101, decide to do it for yourself. For the next hour, just go do whatever you want. And then she just walks away with Steven. Do you want to go get lunch? And there's this really sweet part of the shot where as they walk off, Cherry Quartz just sort of turns around looking really panicked and looks at the other people in the class like, oh, I'm going to have to make friends with these people. And then she doesn't show up again until the very end of the episode. It's such an abrupt, we'll leave her to it. She's fine now.
I didn't love it, but for the reasons described, because it made me think about the format and stuff. So,
right, yeah. There's a joke, though. Do you think it hurt? Because the premise being that Steven's so caring, that he's got this personal touch. He's taking everyone through it personally. Oh, I'm Steven, welcome to the new world, this is how it is. It felt so personal and so he was giving her so much attention and so much of his time. It's like Amethyst's you want lunch? He's like, yeah, bye, I guess. He doesn't even do that, he just walks off. Is that out of character?
Was the lesson,
maybe? I don't know.
It? The argument is that's the lesson. Do what you want.
Steven wants to have lunch.
Yeah, I think he's quite blindsided by... As episode 2 explores more, he's quite blindsided by his interpretation of what they need and want. And in that instance, the lesson that he thinks they need is just do what you want. And he's not quite thinking about how nervous and new this new gem is, because to him, gem society is so great that, hey, she's not bubbled anymore, so of course she'll want to do what she wants.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's true.
I think it fits with the character they're now establishing for him, but it is, when you think about it like that, it's a bit cruel.
Especially because they spend so much time sort of showing him with that, again, giving that personal touch. The other quick thing I wanted to ask you about, this is just because this occurred to me. Do you think Amethyst's lack of caring about what Jasper's up to when they have that little heart-to-heart on the bench is out of character? Because she's like, forget her. She's out. She's done. She's not, who cares? She doesn't want to be with us. That's fine. Whatever. Steven, stop trying to help everyone. Stop trying to save everyone. Do you think that's a bit out of character for Amethyst not to want to help Jasper specifically?
It didn't feel it. No, I think there's a sense of
after the hey sis moment. You think her being that flippant about Jasper makes sense?
Yeah, but it's this massive time jump. Hey Sis was, if for all we know, Amethyst
was probably 2 or 3 years ago.
Yeah, Steven certainly would have tried a lot. We can assume maybe Amethyst did as well. If it's not working and everything else is perfect, you would choose to ignore, unless you felt a threat from her. I think it's almost more surprising that no one's seemingly viewing Jasper as a threat, and that Jasper has chosen, as Steven said, to just chill there. And just well, you've got a whole universe you've got access to. Why have you built an angry little cave?
Well, what does a soldier do when the war ends?
Which is a fascinating story.
And the thing is, and as pointed out in this, there's no one left for her to fight, and not only that, she was beaten squarely by the crystal gems every time. She's not a threat, really, not on her own. She would only be a threat if she'd managed to build herself a little army of, because there's a lot of quartzes knocking about now. There's a lot of related gems. I could foresee a world where she'd built herself a little army and was a threat, but on her own, just off like that, definitely not. They've beat her so many times squarely.
Well, speaking of beating her, in terms of moments that felt out of character, the one that actually jarred with me
I think I was going to bring this up as well. Go on.
Was when Jasper's fighting Stephen and says, or about to fight him, I can't remember the exact context, but she at one point says, "You're nothing without, like, your friends,
yes.
and you're nothing without them." And Stephen sort of rises to it instead of going, "Yep, you're right, I'm not," like, which is way more in keeping. And I don't know if that's 3 years, a growth, a slight diamond cockiness, maybe. I don't know. I was really like, I was expecting Stephen to triumphantly be like, "No, of course I'm not," to her. But instead, he sort of took the bait, and I thought that was very out of character.
Yeah, I think intentional though. I think looking at the arc of this character throughout these episodes, it's worth noting that obviously we did get to see the Pink Steven thing show up here, but it showed up in a sort of everyone will have seen this, I assume. But obviously, he goes out to try and talk to Jasper, despite Amethyst being like, "Don't worry about it," and they end up sort of fighting. And we get to see the pink form come out in that moment. Actually, when it's actually that exact moment that brings the pink out of him. So I don't think it's a coincidence he's suddenly acting out of character when he turns pink. I think very much we're seeing little hints of whatever's still inside him. You remember, he is the sum of his parts, but one of his parts keeps coming through very clearly, visually clearly too. So there's an element of how much is his personality. How much is his... If Stephen is a fusion of that pink half of himself and that human half of himself, when he goes pink, is that pink half of himself coming through a little more strongly and overriding some of the balance that he normally achieves? And therefore, how is that affecting his responses? I think it's deliberate. I don't think it's out of character. I think it's a choice because they're hinting. Because in this episode, obviously, he doesn't Hulk out as such. He gets the pink powers and he uses them to fight, but he seems in control. I think that weird little betrayal of how Stephen's character would behave is the hint that he's not as in control as maybe he thinks. But it's not that he's not in control of the powers and he's hulked out. It's that he's not necessarily in control of his emotions as much as he thought he was. Does that make sense?
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. I think that's great.
I totally felt as you felt when I was watching it the first time, but when I strapped it together with the pink stuff, I was like, "Oh, actually, no. This is them hinting at where this is going." I think, and I think it becomes clearer across these 4 episodes. Obviously, you haven't seen the final 2 yet, so we'll talk about this when we get to them. But I do think, particularly, I think the 4th one does sort of lay out the groundwork for maybe that's going to be him learning to maybe control that might be part of a more of an arc for the whole season. Its use in this particular episode is perfect because it's like it's hinted, but it's not. He doesn't even outright notice that it's problematic yet, and that's actually a really subtle way to do it. Like he's like, "Oh my god, I got new powers!" Like he doesn't even notice that in that moment he was slightly out of character, slightly angrier. It's a bit like Harry Potter in the is it the 5th one? Is it the 5th one? He's all angry. Lots of caps lock.
Yeah, Order of the Phoenix, yeah.
Yeah. So, and not unjustifiably so either. Like, the guy saved everything and everyone from a very oppressive regime. Like, he really did do a lot of good. And, like, it must be frustrating to have somebody say you're nothing when you've achieved all that.
I hope they explore that as well, and we've explored the responsibility of what's happening to him over the course of the show. I hope we explore what happens to a young person when they achieve something like that. One of my favorite points, and one that I think about often when people give Justin Bieber shit especially young Justin Bieber. And I think it was Kevin Hart that was like making a joke about it, where he was like, everyone's criticizing Justin Bieber, but if I was a millionaire at 15 years old, I'd have brought a monkey. Like, I'd have closed a street to go street racing. You don't know what that kind of fame and success is going to do to a young person. So equally, he saved the entire universe, and he's a kid. Like that, the effect of making it think he can do anything. No wonder he thinks his opinion is right. His opinion saved the universe.
Yeah.
And I hope that gets explored more and more.
Yeah, I think it will, and it's worth noting as well. If we see Chris, it's a big heavy theme in Max Save the Galaxy, the little project I'm working on the side. Promoting a thing that doesn't fully exist yet. It's the stupidest idea ever. I promise I'm still working on that, by the way, for listeners. I still get questions. I was literally writing on that yesterday, so it is still happening. I promise. It's just way slower than I anticipated because, dear Lord, how many podcasts? All the podcasts. Stop doing podcasts. Anyway, full-time job plus podcast equals Max Save the Galaxy going slowly. But anyway.
For anyone thinking after Dan saying that, oh, maybe it's Chris that suggests all the extra podcasts. It's not.
No. It's I do it to myself. It is absolutely self-inflicted damage. It's friendly fire. And for those who don't know, actually, I should clarify. Max Save the Galaxy is a project I've been working on. There was a preview I shared with the people on our Discord, like nearly a year ago now. That's really depressing. And I've been sort of slowly chugging away at it since. The initial preview was just my initial burst of excitement over it, but I couldn't go further than the preview because there's a whole world to build, and I had to take a step back to actually do that, lay the groundwork to actually go ahead with the project properly. And that's taking absolutely ages. Sorry. There you go. So now people kind of know what it is and what it isn't. If you want to hear more about that or find out more about that, message in the comments and I'll send you the link to the preview, or if you're on the Discord, ask there. There's actually
it's very good.
Thank you.
Very, very good.
Yeah. But that is a theme in that, and I think that is a theme that fascinates me too, and I hope they do deal with it, because it'd be interesting to see if there is an element of, so it's part of it is this pink side of him coming out and sort of altering him in some ways, or having more sway in the mixture that makes up Steven Universe. I don't think it was an accident that this episode opens with him going, "That used to be a loaded question, but I'm Steven Universe." I think it's still a loaded question. Who is it? I don't think that's going away, and I think he needs to accept that. And I think that's maybe part of this journey, is him accepting that he's never going to be perfect and balanced that way. Worth noting very quickly as well, that Cherry Quartz was also voiced by Kimberly Brooks, who does Jasper.
Cool.
So I guess Quartz's can be voiced by either or, really, her or Susan Egan, who has obviously created all of these quartzes. Obviously, Susan Egan being the voice of Pink Diamond, Rose Quartz. So yeah, I think there's going to be a mixture of Kimberly Brooks' voice and Susan's voice across the various agates that we've yet to meet.
Did you have any other kind of final thoughts on Steven v Jasper?
Yeah, a few actually. I thought it was really interesting that Jasper said, what are you training for? There's no one left to fight. And she responds, there's always someone left to fight. There's just no one left worth fighting. So I love the idea that, like, Steven giving her a bit of grief, like, brought that out in her, and they got to have that fight, and she was actually mostly just excited to have someone worth fighting.
Yeah, she didn't even seem like that angry at him. She just wanted to fight.
And I think that's actually leading to another. I think there's going to be another Jasper episode that brings her into the fold. And I do think she's going to do combat training for people to defend themselves, like self-defense training at the homeschool, Little Homeschool.
Yeah, she didn't actually seem as adverse to the idea as the impression she gave.
Yeah, and she wasn't as much of an antagonist as I thought by the end, and that was fascinating too.
Yeah, absolutely.
I also loved the joke of it took forever to pull those puny green earthlings out of the ground. And he's like, "You mean grass?" She's like, "I don't know their names." That whole conversation is
funny.
That conversation is amazing, actually. Like she talks about him using other gems. she says he uses them, which actually is a precursor to what she then says later, which But he points out very correctly actually that she corrupted herself to win a fight. So, she's not much better. And then she lost that fight to him anyway. He's actually quite angry there, too. You start seeing it come out even beforehand. But, before he starts visibly turning pink. And then I do love, I guess we're doing this before they fight as well. That's a great line from Steven.
Yeah. It's real badass, that line.
Yeah, 100%. He's very angry and he yells, "I'm not pitiful," as he hits her, and he does that awesome. I wanted to compliment just the animation for the fight itself. I thought all the choreography in the fight is great. When he's saving the birds, which is a really sweet moment and shows that he's not completely, hulking out. It's another he's in this fight, but he's in control. He hasn't gone pink at that point, but he started angry. So it's nice to see that moment where he saves the birds. But just things like he makes his shield appear so he can land on it and jump off it in midair. That's awesome. Yes, please.
Oh, the choreography of that and the bird stick I thought was awesome. All of that stuff looked fantastic.
Yeah. I think. Well, let's quickly talk about sort of Jasper then. I suppose in general, do you think that is where they're going with it? And do you think there is that premise of there's no war, so she's just lost because what does a soldier do when there's literally no war to fight? All the other gems, particularly we'll talk about again in the next one, but in the second episode, they're all getting to do things related to what they did on Homeworld. But Jasper's job was fighting, was war. So she's really lost because that's not a thing she can find an adjacent. Well, we talked about an option, which is that she can go teach combat at Little Homeschool. But do you think right now, from her perspective, she's not seeing a reality where she can continue to do the things she's good at, and therefore she's sort of is that the hint? Is that the idea? Is that? And do you think?
Yeah, I think that's absolutely it. And I think that's a fascinating plot. That I definitely want to explore more. I think that's. It's interesting whether it ends with her still an antagonist or her, fighting on their side with them. Because I can see it going either way. I don't know if it's are theorizing about her being part of a master plan. I don't know how much that will come true.
Well, that's my question actually. How would you feel if this was it? How would you feel if Jasper's arc ended with Steven saying, "Can you teach me?" And her saying, "Consider that fight your one and only lesson." And him asking, "Can I come back and see you sometime?" And she said, "Do what you want." Presumably thinking, "I really enjoyed that. Please come back." If that was her ending, how would you feel about that?
I'd be, as long as she was happy, I'd feel better, rather than just routinely fighting Steven. I think it would be the ideal is she ends up teaching at Little Homeschool. And I think that if there's another big bad, the idea of Jasper, of them losing and not changing the mind of, the Lapises or any other big bad, but getting Jasper on side over the course of an entire series, I think that would be a satisfying arc.
So you think there could be a point where there's there's some form of big bad out there that Steven needs to physically fight, and he fetches Jasper well, this is war. This is the thing she's good at, the thing she's currently missing out on. Let me drag her.
Yeah, I think that's very possible.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I think that is a possibility. The question there you'd have then is, would Jasper form a small sort of freedom army that exists to protect the freedom that Steven has granted to the universe, so she can still go around and do what she was doing, which is fighting?
Yeah, and it's tough. The only thing with it is it's tough to see Steven actively sending someone in to fight.
Yes, but I mean, I suppose if you go by the lesson he learns in episode 2, which is that there are just things people want to, people have preferences, the things they like doing and are good at doing, and there's a satisfaction they get out of that. So, but the idea of there being someone who gets something out of that, being available not to fight because they need to fight, but to only when it's to protect the freedom he's granted the universe. He's had to fight when it's been necessary. Having someone else out there who's good at it and likes doing it, doing that for the right reasons, I suppose, is better than the opposite. I suppose.
Yeah, that's very true. Yeah.
So I guess it depends how they set it up. I'd be just satisfied with her doing a bit of training at Little Homeschool, personally.
Yeah, I think that would be great. Yeah, I agree.
That'd be enough for me.
That feels like the more show-appropriate end to that arc.
Yeah, I'd agree. What do you think about the way it ends? Actually, what do you think about the Stephen voiceover in this episode? I found that really weird.
I thought it was fine because wasn't it mainly in the context of him talking to the new
Cherry Quartz.
Yeah, Cherry Quartz.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, okay. I don't know. I just thought it was a really weird thing. They've never done it before. I don't think the show's ever had narration before like that. Like even if it's contextual narration that actually exists because it's just us hearing what he is saying to Cherry Quartz.
It didn't jar with me at all. I think for the reason you pointed out earlier, that bit's only actually 3 minutes. So at most,
well, yeah, but it comes back at the end as well, doesn't it? Because when he finishes with Jasper, he starts talking again. It's that same piece of music, and he's
but
like,
that's again him talking to her. Because
yes,
it ends the gag of "Can you just sign my lesson plan?" So
yeah,
that didn't jar with me at all.
I think it just format wise, a part of me just went, "Oh, is this the thing now? Is narration a part of Steven Universe's future?" I was kind of relieved it wasn't in the second episode. I don't think it.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I get that. It just it's not. I guess because they'd made it didactic, I think is the right word.
That is the right word.
Yeah, I didn't notice it.
Yeah, okay. I guess I was just, and I think that someone shared that fear with me on the Discord. Maybe Latty was like, oh, I hope that's not the thing now, because I don't think it adds anything to this story. I mean, I don't know. Okay, that's not fair. It adds something to this particular story because of a very particular need to establish a bunch of stuff up top. But I hope it's not part of every other episode, because I don't see it being valuable following this. So yeah,
I'm with you.
I'm glad they brought Cherry back at the end, and the idea that and confirmed that she settled in. She looks happy and wants.
That's the thing about it, isn't it? Confirming that she's no longer scared and gets it a little bit, and
and is on board. Two very last quick notes. First of all, Nephrite, the little drawing that Nephrite did with Stephen when she was still centipedal was stuck to his fridge in the opening scene. I thought that was really neat.
Nice.
It was a nice detail. And then we got a bunch of new names. Some of them said out loud. Some of them from the various creators of the show on Twitter.
Dan. Are you passing off trivia as notes?
Well, I did make notes of the names as I heard them, and then I added the ones that I got off Twitter.
Still, we don't your notes.
Mate, we don't have trivia. There's zero trivia.
Okay, cool. Right, well that's fine. I just wanted to double check that you weren't reading trivia and had classed it as notes. So if there's triv, let it be known as triv. But if it's your notes, it's notes.
Well, this is a bit of a this is a bit of a fusion of both, Chris, because a couple of these I got from Twitter or previous information, and some of them I got from the episode and them saying the names out loud. So
triv is pure. This may be your triv, Dan, but it's not triv. Triv is triv page triv.
Yes,
but this is better because this is personal. You've put research into this.
Well, I mean, I noted down the ones I heard, and then at the end of the night, I looked back through the ones we've gained recently, so I can pretty much name a lot of our new gems now. So I'm going to read through them. I won't say where we got all the names from because that would take too long, but very quickly, I'll say the names, and in the video version, I'll put a picture of the gem I'm referring to on, so listeners can sort of put it together. But we got Crazy Lace Agate, Blue Lace Agate, Biggs Jasper.
Yeah.
Orange Spondu Mini. I still can't pronounce that. Mm-hmm. Zebra Jasper.
Nice.
Angel Aura Quartz.
Nice.
Bixbite.
Mm-hmm.
Snowflake Obsidian. And Larimar. Mm-hmm.
Nice.
Now, Snowflake Obsidian and Larimar I got from the next episode, so we'll specifically talk about them in the next episode. But that just now that all those gems pictures should have been on screen as I was saying them. So anyone who wants to know who's who now, there we go. We don't have every single one, I don't think. I also noticed in the opening shot there was like a random aquamarine floating through Little Homeworld, and the old Ruby ship was seen flying through the sky at one point. I thought that was interesting.
Oh, cool. That's
yeah.
Cool.
I guess that clarifies where the rubies have come from, because there was no rubies on Earth other than the one we knew. They were mostly quartzes, weren't they? That were corrupted. So there is an element of where did Nanafoi's ruby guards come from? But I guess they've just come to Earth.
Come to Earth intermediate time. Yeah, I guess.
Yeah, and it looks like there's a couple of gems that have done that, because, like I said, we've got a completely uncorrupted. There was a completely uncorrupted aquamarine that flies through one of the shots. So I guess that's a thing.
That's the thing. Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. There we go. Well, I'm pumped it's back, and I'm pumped to discuss guidance next time.
I mean, well, very quickly, just overall thoughts. Good episode, bad episode. We didn't really review it, did we?
I thought it was great. I thought it was. I think the excitement carries it, and the joy of seeing Jasper and Stephen on screen together, and the tease of Stephen hulking out carries it. I think that I probably, of the two I've seen, enjoyed the second one more. Because I came up less against the format thing, which I think the fact it was only 3 minutes, that has been lessened for me over the course of this conversation. But the second episode, it felt like joyous old Steven Universe. Mm-hmm. This felt a bit like, we got to establish this, and we got to let's also put this in, and let's see Jasper, and let's do this.
Yeah, it's definitely a victim of its circumstances. It needed to do a lot, and I think it did it very well, and still wound up being very entertaining. So
don't get me wrong as well. I think they were right to do it that way. I think that was the right first episode for this show.
Yes.
It just, if you're asking me to give an overall opinion, I would say great first episode of the show. Yeah. Exactly the right choice. Did I get as much personal enjoyment from it? Potentially not.
No, I think I would agree with that. I had a lot of fun watching it, and it is a good episode of the show, but it had a lot to do that hamstrung it. So if I'm putting it in a race against the other episodes that aired, it's one of the ones that had to do it with weights attached. Do you know what I mean? Like, it was slowed down not by its own quality, but by it just had a lot more to do. So it had to do things that you wouldn't normally do in an open-ended, let's do what we want episode of Steven Universe, which is, I think, what the next one is. So we'll talk about that next time.
There you go.
There you go. So thanks very much for listening, everyone. I've been Dan Doolan.
I've been Chris Billingham.
Come back in a day or two when we discuss guidance.